The wind howled through the trees, rattling window panes and sending leaves flying down the empty street. Rain lashed against the rooftops, and distant thunder rolled across the night sky. Inside a modest home tucked away in a quiet suburban neighborhood, Emma sat curled on her couch, blanket wrapped tightly around her shoulders. The lights flickered once, then held steady. She glanced at the clock nearly midnight and exhaled slowly, grateful her son was already asleep upstairs. She had barely closed her eyes when a soft, hesitant knock echoed through the house. It came against gentle taps against the front door. Her heart leaped. At this hour, her neighborhood was quiet, predictable. She stood slowly, peering through the peephole. What she saw made her pause. A man, drenched from head to toe, stood hunched under the small overhang of the porch. His clothes clung to his thin frame, soaked through. A grizzled beard framed his face, and deep lines etched across his forehead. He wasn't threatening, just tired, exhausted. Even. Emma opened the door slightly, rain gusting in. Ma'am. I'm sorry to bother you, he said, voice trembling from cold and nerves. I was wondering if you had an old blanket, or maybe some food. I can leave right after. Emma stared at him, uncertain. Her instincts warred with each other, fear, empathy, caution. But something about the man's eyes rooted her in place. They were weary, yes, but kind. There was no manipulation there, no aggression, just a quiet, fragile hope that someone might not slam the door in his face. She swallowed hard. Wait here, she said, closing the door gently. She stood in her hallway, debating what to do. Her pantry held only a few extras, and money was tight since she lost her job. But she knew what it felt like to be desperate. And this man, he looked like someone who hadn't been warm in days. She returned, not with just a blanket, but a tray with a peanut butter sandwich, an apple, and a bottle of water. His eyes widened as she handed it to him. He took it slowly, almost reverently. There's a space out back, she said, gesturing toward her detached garage. It's not much, but there's an old mattress in there, and a little heater. You can stay the night, just the night, okay? He stared at her in disbelief. Are you sure? She nodded. It's dry, and it locks from the inside. You'll be safe. I don't know what to say, he murmured, tears threatening to form in his eyes. Thank you. What's your name? She asked. John. Well, John, get some rest. I'll check on you in the morning. She led him through the side gate to the garage. The rain had turned to a heavy drizzle, soaking them both. She unlocked the door, flicked on the single bulb inside, and showed him where the old mattress sat beneath a pile of boxes. It was dusty, but better than concrete. He set the tray down carefully, like it was something precious. She placed an extra quilt on the mattress, handed him a towel, and started the space heater. As she turned to leave, he said quietly, no one's treated me like this in a long time. You didn't have to do this. Emma smiled gently. Maybe not. But sometimes, we just do the right thing even when it's inconvenient. She stepped back out into the rain, heart heavier than before, yet somehow fuller. She didn't know who John really was, where he'd come from, or what had brought him to her door. But in that moment, none of it mattered. She just knew he needed a place to rest. And for one night, she had the power to offer him peace. The morning sun broke through the storm clouds, casting a golden hue across the wet pavement. The storm had passed, but the air still smelled of rain and fresh earth. Birds chirped hesitantly, as if testing the calm. Inside her kitchen, Emma poured hot coffee into a chipped mug, the smell filling the small space like a warm hug. She added 2 slices of toast to a plate, one with butter, the other with jam, the best she could offer from what little she had left in her pantry. She looked out the window toward the detached garage. The light was still on, he hadn't left. Balancing the plate and mug, she walked barefoot through the damp grass. Her robe tugged tight against the morning chill. The garage door was slightly ajar. She gave it a soft knock. John looked up from where he sat on the edge of the mattress, folding the blanket she had given him the night before. His eyes lit up not from the coffee or the food, but from the simple fact that she had returned. I thought you might need something warm, Emma said gently, handing him the tray. He took it with careful hands, as though afraid it might disappear. You didn't have to. I know, she said with a soft smile, but I wanted to. They sat outside on a small bench near the garage, the sun drying the dew around them. John sipped the coffee slowly, savoring it like it was something rare. He was quiet, his voice low and respectful when he spoke. It's been a long time since anyone's brought me anything, let alone a meal and a warm place to sleep. Emma nodded, wrapping her hands around her own mug. I've had rough months too. Lost my job a few weeks ago. Still looking. It's hard keeping things going for me and my son, but, she glanced at him, I still have more than some. John looked down at the ground, his jaw tightening, eyes glistening. That's rare, you know. Most people look right past me, like I'm invisible. You're not invisible, Emma said softly. You're someone's son. Maybe someone's father. You're human, that's enough. He was silent for a long moment, then slowly turned to her. I can fix things. Used to be pretty handy. Your fence there looks like it's coming apart. I can patch it up. And your porch steps are loose. Emma chuckled lightly. Are you offering me a trade? One night stay for home repairs? He smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. Only if you'll let me. She looked at the fence, then back at him. Just rest for now. You don't owe me anything. John stared at her like he was trying to memorize her words. Her tone, her kindness. In that simple exchange, Emma had given him something he hadn't felt in years, not just a place to stay, not food or coffee, but dignity. She saw him, she listened, and in her company he no longer felt like a ghost passing through a world that had forgotten him. What Emma didn't know was that her kindness had done more than offer comfort. It had reminded a lost man of who he used to be and who he still could be. 2 days passed in quiet rhythm. John had stayed in the garage without complaint, never asking for more, never intruding. He helped Emma carry groceries in one afternoon, and spent most of his time sitting quietly in the backyard, watching the wind rustle the trees like someone remembering how to breathe. He never spoke much about his past, and Emma never pressed. It was an unspoken agreement. Sometimes kindness didn't need explanation. But on the third morning, the garage door stood open, and the mattress was bare. Emma stood at the threshold, her breath catching slightly in her throat. The folded blanket sat neatly on top of a milk crate, and beside it, a small piece of notebook paper. The edges wrinkled, the handwriting a little shaky. She picked it up slowly, her eyes scanning the short message. Thank you for treating me like a human. That meant more than you'll ever know. No name, no goodbye. Just those few words, lingering like footprints in the heart. Emma pressed the note to her chest. A quiet wave of emotion washed over her, not sadness exactly, but a kind of hollow tenderness. She looked around the small garage, now just a storage space again. It felt a little colder now, a little less full. She had wondered if he would stay longer, maybe open up. Part of her even imagined offering him more help, finding out his story, maybe helping him find work, but he was gone. Still, something told her that's exactly how he wanted it. Quiet, simple, without making her feel burdened, and maybe that was the point. It hadn't been about getting something, it had been about being seen. Emma stood there, for a long moment, her fingers brushing over the words again. She didn't know where John had gone or if she'd ever see him again, but she knew in her heart she hadn't made a mistake. She had opened her door, offered warmth, and most importantly, treated a man with dignity when he needed it most. And somehow, even in his silence, John had left something behind, more lasting than presence, a feeling, a reminder. Kindness never truly disappears. It simply finds another place to bloom. A week had passed since John vanished from Emma's life as quietly as he had arrived. Life moved on, groceries to stretch, bills to juggle, and job listings to scan. But his absence lingered like the last note of a song, soft but unforgettable. Every time she passed the garage, her eyes drifted toward it, as if half expecting to see him sitting there with his gentle smile and kind eyes. That morning, the sky was clear, the air warm with the scent of early spring. Emma walked out to the mailbox, rubbing her temples from another long night of worry. Her son played in the yard, laughing as he chased a worn soccer ball, his joy a small light in her otherwise uncertain days. She flipped through the usual mess of junk mail and flyers until her hand paused on a small cream-colored envelope. No name, no return address. It felt thick, like it held something more than just a card. Curious, she opened it right there on the curb. Inside was a handwritten note, the penmanship elegant and steady. You gave without expecting. You saw a man, not a burden. My name is Jonathan Hart. I own Heartwood Industries. I once lost everything: family, purpose, self-worth. Your kindness reminded me of who I was, not because you offered me shelter, but because you didn't ask why. I needed it. You simply gave. That kind of compassion changes people. It changed me." Emma's heart raced as her fingers unfolded the second piece of paper tucked behind the note. A check, $50,000, signed, Jonathan Hart. Asterisk. Her breath caught. Her knees buckled. She dropped slowly onto the front step, the letter trembling in her hands. Tears flooded her eyes, spilling down her cheeks before she could stop them. Asterisk. Her son saw her and ran over, alarmed. "Mom, what's wrong?" Asterisk. She pulled him into her arms, hugging him tightly, burying her face in his hair. Asterisk. "We're going to be okay," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "We're going to be okay now." Asterisk. She held the letter close, as if afraid it might vanish. In that moment, the weight she'd been carrying for months of fear, the exhaustion, the constant strain of barely making it, lifted like fog under morning sun. Asterisk. Emma had given from the little she had, expecting nothing in return. Asterisk. And somehow, that one selfless act had changed the course of her life. Asterisk. 6 months had passed, and the modest corner lot where Emma once struggled to hold everything together had transformed into something remarkable. Where weeds and an old shed once stood, a bright blue-painted building now welcomed visitors with a warm wooden sign above the door. Emma's pantry. Take what you need. Leave what you can. And just beneath it, a small brass plaque read, Asterisk. Kindness never goes unnoticed. Asterisk. It was a quiet Saturday morning. The sun filtered through the trees, casting soft shadows as families trickled in: single mothers, elderly couples, young parents. Emma greeted each one with a kind word, a warm smile, and open hands. Shelves inside were stocked with canned goods, fresh produce, baby formula, and second-hand clothes, all donated, all free. The pantry had become a lifeline for dozens in the neighborhood. Asterisk. Emma looked different now, still the same woman, still grounded and humble, but lighter, brighter. She no longer carried the invisible weight of survival. The unexpected gift from Jonathan Hart had not only saved her, but fueled a mission. She had taken what once felt like a miracle and turned it into a movement. Asterisk. As she helped a boy pick out cereal for his little sister, a sleek black car pulled up quietly to the curb. The engine idled for a moment, then turned off. Emma glanced over, shielding her eyes from the sun. Asterisk. The door opened, and there he was, John. Asterisk. No longer hidden under layers of worn clothes, no longer hunched and weary. He stepped out wearing a tailored suit, his silver hair combed neatly back, shoes polished, posture proud, but his eyes, those familiar, kind eyes, were exactly the same. He smiled and raised a hand in a soft wave. Emma's heart swelled. She stepped away from the pantry and walked toward him slowly, a lump forming in her throat. For a brief second, neither of them spoke. Asterisk. Then, she said, "Didn't think I'd see you again." Asterisk. He chuckled. "Didn't think anyone would ever see me at all." Asterisk. They embraced, not out of obligation, but out of something deeper: gratitude, respect, connection. Asterisk. "You built this," he said, glancing toward the pantry, his voice thick with admiration. Asterisk. Emma smiled, eyes glistening. "You gave me the chance. I just did what felt right." Asterisk. John looked at the plaque and nodded. "You reminded me who I was that night. I thought I'd lost everything, but your kindness brought me back." Asterisk. Emma squeezed his hand. "And now, we both get to give back." Asterisk. The door of the pantry opened again as a young girl walked out, her arms full of groceries and a beaming smile on her face. John stepped aside, watching her with quiet awe. Asterisk. In that simple scene, laughter, hope, and human connection. It became clear, that rainy night, what seemed like a small act of compassion had sparked something far bigger, not just for Emma, not just for John, but for an entire community. Asterisk. And as they stood there, side by side in the golden morning light, they both knew one moment of kindness can change everything.